Mr. Chairman.
Senator Jamby.
Yes, manifestation. I wish to read a manifestation merely on my stand with regards to commission, because I've often been misquoted in the papers and in the media.
Please proceed.
I hope you will bear with me, and I do not intend to disrupt the proceedings, merely to put on record my stand. Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, I quote, "Abandon all hope, all who enter here." Each of us here knows the famous inscription over the doors of hell in Dante's Inferno. We may not recall as vividly, perhaps, the subsequent lines of the Tuscan bard. Dante described the long line of wailing ghost-like figures in the gates of hell who remained indistinct because in life they had been fence-sitters. And of this long line of indistinct wraiths, Mr. Chairman, the poet Dante only recognized a few, and of these he chose to remark of only one. "I saw and then identified the shade," he wrote, "of that coward who made the first great refusal." Over the centuries, scholars have pondered who precisely the great coward was supposed to be at the gates of hell. They have come up with two main suspects. Suspect number one is Pope Celestine V, who abdicated the papacy and whose refusal to fulfill his papal responsibilities earned him Dante's ire. Suspect number two is Pontius Pilate, who, despite being Roman governor of Judea, refused to pass judgment on Jesus, neither convicting nor acquitting him, but instead handing over the Messiah to the mob. In either case, Mr. Chairman, from the mind and moral sense of the Tuscan bard of old, there comes down to us a particular contempt for fence-sitters, political and moral cowards whom Dante described as displeasing both to God and his enemy, and who, as a consequence, could not enter heaven, but were also denied entry to hell. Instead, naked, they were condemned to be bitten everywhere by wasps and hornets for all eternity. But since man proposes and God disposes, I wish to manifest today, Mr. Chairman, that we do not have to possess the vivid imagination of a Dante to see here and now the kinds of men who, in the poet's words, mercy and justice disdain, for they aspire neither to be blamed nor applauded. I refer to the present inability of the Commission on Appointments to either submit, as we are duty-bound to submit, to the Constitution, or else to defy its provisions entirely and to assume political and moral responsibility for their rebellion against our basic law. I must manifest for the record how the Commission on Appointments has obstinately refused to recognize that its composition has been determined by constitutional provision and jurisprudence according to a specific formula. I must manifest how repeated attempts on my part and the part of concerned colleagues have been ignored, all because the current Commission on Appointments prefers cozy cohabitation, easy accommodation, and unseemly horse trading with the chief executive to conscientiously, responsibly, and unflinchingly discharge its duties to screen the President's appointments and promotions. And I must manifest how, in the face of the unassailable logic of our position, the ultimate response of the leadership of the Commission has been to copy Pilate by washing its hands of the matter while piously proclaiming it democratic, reasonable, and respectable, to postpone resolving our objections by blandly telling us that they will be studied and debated. This will go down as the great refusal, Mr. Chairman, for in refusing to cast his lot either with the defenders of the Constitution, while pretending he is prudently abstaining from actually endorsing the cozy status quo. In truth, the leadership of the Commission of Appointments has turned its back on independent traditions of this chamber, turned the principle of the separation of powers on its head while preserving the appalling and corrupting status quo. And I must manifest that in the face of all this, the leadership then passed around a cup of bitter gall for all defenders of the Constitution to drink. When I and all those who objected to the Commission continuing its work while its anomalous composition remains unsolved, the leadership has shrugged as we were accused of partisanship, of political selfishness, and even of indulging personal vendettas. Mr. Chairman, those waiting for their appointments and promotions to be disposed of by the Commission have every right to feel aggrieved, but not because I invoke Section 20. That provision is there for good purpose, and it is to prevent the Commission from becoming a rubber stamp which would contradict the very reason for its being. They have a right to feel aggrieved because the majority of the Commission's members prefer to exist in a constitutional limbo rather than to live upright and dignified lives in the full light of Constitution Day. They have become collateral damage because the Commission prefers wheeling and dealing rather than to take the time to have its composition conform to the Constitution. And so now we have before us the worst of everything. An anomalous commission, its work forever tainted by the possibility, indeed the probability, that its workings were contrary to law, deciding on careers that in turn will be permanently tainted by the stain of constitutional infirmity and legal dubiousness. Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, authority cannot be divorced from responsibility. Great politicians decide for good or ill, but do not shirk from facing the bar of history. The great pretenders are the ones who think they can avoid displeasing anyone by pretending to decide, but to actually pass the buck. There is nothing for the Committee on Rules to decide. The Constitution and the Supreme Court time and again have been emphatic. The rules are on the composition of the Commission on the appointments according to proportional party representation. The traditions of this chamber, which has always stood for the equitable representation according to the provisions of law for all parties, are clear, as are its traditions that put a premium on oversight of the executive where congressmen fear to tread. We cannot be a party to the dubious confirmation of officials this Commission intends to undertake. These officials will only find themselves the subject of litigation concerning the validity of their confirmations. We cannot be Pontius Pilates, Mr. Chairman, if there continues to be an obstinate and peevish insistence on perverting the rule of law. Then the time has come to ask for a resolution outside this chamber. Mr. President, I am therefore placing everyone in this Commission on notice that as I have been dared, I shall be filing before the Supreme Court an action to nullify all actions taken by this anomalous Commission, which refuses to follow the Constitution. I am doing this out of principle and a sense of duty to the Constitution, and not out of any personal grudge or motive to anyone. This being my stand, Mr. President, I cannot sit here and watch this anomalous commission confirm the people being confirmed today. Nothing personal, Mr. President, strictly constitutional. Thank you.